Osiris. It's about Osiris. Are you familiar with the myth of Osiris? And
yeah.
Osiris was killed by his brother, but no one ever talks about why his brother killed him. Right? It's not really fair to his brother, to be honest, because his brother Set, the often shown as having like this kind of hook-shaped nose, killed him because Osiris had an affair with his wife, Nephthys. So Nephthys would be compared today to Athena. Right? Set would be probably compared to Hades, right? And you've probably got Aphrodite would be compared to Isis. So you go through the Sumerian pantheon had 7 gods in it. Then you had 12 in the Greek and the Egyptian and the Roman, and they're all sort of related, even up to the Norse gods as well, Norse and Germanic. And they just have different names for them. Thor, Zeus, right? Yeah. You've got these different names. Wotan is Miercules, or Mercury, or Thoth, right? The messenger god. So you got all of this stuff sort of playing out, and the story of Osiris playing out. And Osiris is personified by the constellation of Orion. The 3 stars on the belt match exactly the proportion positions of the Teotihuacan Plateau pyramids, match exactly the proportions of the Rostau Plateau, which is what we now refer to as the Giza Plateau, right? The Chinese pyramids as well. You see this relationship all over the world with these ancient pyramid sites. And by the way, they were all built on the same units of measure too. For example, the pyramids in Mexico, the base of the Pyramid of the Moon is exactly the height of the Great Pyramid, which is 432 long cubits, 1.75 feet to each long cubit. When you look at the height of the Pyramid of the Sun, it's 216 feet, right? And you'll notice these are harmonic numbers, 432, 216. They always sum to 9. They're geometric numbers.
Wow.
Right? That same height is matching as well the Menkaure Pyramid. So these are clearly harmonic relationships.
And also point to a reality that, Graham Hancock talks about, which is the post-Diluvian world in which there was an advanced civilization that spread around the world, coming from a common source, which is most likely also Matthias de Stefano remembering, singing his songs of Chem and the dissemination of that knowledge post-Atlantis. Or you could assume that, all right, maybe that didn't happen and this was all just downloads from the collective unconscious, the capital M mind of God. Either way, but most likely it was actually carried wisdom that just spread all throughout the world and said, listen, we've seen the destruction that can happen when power becomes the operative, which is Matthias's story of the fall of Atlantis, or perhaps just the Earth's natural cataclysmic nature.
I think it's just the cycle.
Whatever it might be, of course, we weren't there, we don't know, but it fundamentally shows that in some way, this knowledge was spread around the world to be kept and to be rediscovered through the universal language of math and geometry, which then also pointed to the universal truths of the evolution of our consciousness.
Yeah, and when you think about that, it's kind of a mind blower, because you look at the Pyramid of the Sun, it's 216 feet. Well, that's 25,920 inches. What's the significance of that? That's the long period of this orbit that we have with Sirius A in years. And by the way, if you just look up right now on Google, how far is the sun from the center of the galactic disk in Milky Way? It's 25,920 light years.
Wow.
So how is it all so perfect? How is it all so perfect? I mean, when you think about Pyramid of the Sun, Pyramid of the Moon, do you know what the chances are of us getting a perfect solar eclipse would be? We're the only planet in the solar system that has a solar eclipse. Do you know that? Do you know how that can actually happen? How does that even occur?
How does he know that?
What has to be the case is the diameter of the 2 objects have to be in proportion, the difference between the distance between the objects and the vantage point that you're looking at them from. So for example, the moon is 2,160 miles as its diameter. Same number as the number of feet, 216 for the height of the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico. Exactly the same. Okay, so 216, 2,160. We double that, we get 432, right? The Diameter of the sun is 864,000 miles, making its radius 432,000 miles. So wait a minute, that's a note A in Pythagorean tuning as well, by the way. So that means that with 2,160 miles as the diameter of the moon, we multiply that by 400 exactly, and we get the diameter of the sun.
Wow.
That's kind of a mind blower. Okay, so, but then is the distance in proportion 400 times also? And yes, it is. The distance on average is about 232,000 miles between Earth and the moon. You multiply that by 400, it turns out to be 93 million miles, which is the distance we are from the sun. The average of the aphelion and perihelion. The largest distance from the sun, shortest distance from the sun. That's kind of mind-blowing.
So, all right, so let's take a pause here. So for me, this isn't mind-blowing because I've had the direct contact with my own sources, which again come through the plant medicine path, which I've been following with deep reverence for 23 years. It's my first initiation at 18 with psilocybin. And for me, I've understood and received the knowledge that the divine expressed I am, which is the outward, the yang expression of creation of all things, the one becoming many, and that the sacred geometry, the divine intelligence, the logos, the word, all of it would figure itself out perfectly from that initial I am, from that moment. So to me, it's like, yeah, of course, I get it. Like,
okay, I got to give credit here to
and I think there's another interpretation
Aubrey
of God's
Marcus.
God is
I don't know this guy. I think he lives in Austin.
His compass and his thing and making all this.
And Robert Edward Grant. I've been really paying attention to Robert Edward Grant for about 6 months now. The guy knows too much, way too much. Now, if I was going to be granted a gift to stay on the earth forever, I would want to know everything. I would want to know all the important things, and I would want to do things to bring about mankind's enlightenment and climbing up that ladder to become a better species, a better behaved species, a better, more enlightened species, a higher vibration type of a species. Now, for Robert Edward Grant to know all of what he knows, and just in the 7 minutes or 6 minutes of recording this from this podcast, it's just amazing. I mean, there's tons of stuff, and I'm willing to bet that Robert Edward Grant is Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, or Count Saint Germain, or one of the three Nephites, or John the Revelator, or something. He's one of them guys, or aligned with one of those guys, or he could be somebody else who has some of those gifts, but we don't know about. So I am pretty sure this is the way it is. And you got to remember, friends, that to know this stuff, you cannot just rely on academic book stuff, book proof. You have to go on your heart. You have to go on your gut feeling. You have to go on your intuition and just feel your way through it. That's really the only way to do it. So anyways, this is good stuff. I just wanted to capture a moment and share it with you. Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.